I think there are two kinds of people in this world. I think there are pro VHS Rewinder people who you explain it to them, they get it immediately. And then there are like people who just, no matter how much you explain it to people, and they go, why don't you just rewind the VCR? Why don't you just rewind the VCR? Why don't you just rewind the VCR? Maybe they have a point. Obviously, you can rewind tapes in the VCR, but the VHS Rewinder has its place. And I think if you're going to start getting into VHS, if you're going to be like a hipster, nostalgist, blockbuster video, whatever, if you're going to be getting into VHS, a rewinder is an essential tool that I think you need to track down. So the rewinders were sold as, extending the life of your VCR. You have an expensive VCR. VCRs, by the way, I don't know if you remember back in the day, they're very expensive. Crappy VCRs would start at $100, $200, $300 for just mono, $400, $500 VCRs. Extend the life of your precious VCR by rewinding tapes in a VHS Rewinder. And okay, maybe it was a gimmick, maybe that was just a promotional fad, but VHS Rewinders, they could rewind tapes faster. You sit and watch a VHS Rewinder and you go, oh, that's not very fast, but try to rewind the tape in a VCR, it's a lot slower. And later on in the VHS's life, there were high-speed rewinding features built into some of the VCRs. And the advantage of being faster to rewind kind of went away. Still, VHS Rewinders had an advantage in that many times they really did rewind faster. Also, very frequently, when you're renting a tape, you're not just renting one tape, you're renting 2 or 3 tapes. You can only rewind one tape at a time in a VCR unless you have multiple VCRs. So the idea is that you could rewind a tape in your VCR and then have another one going in your rewinder after a night of watching 2 movies, and you had to bring these tapes back to the video store. You had to rewind them, otherwise you'd be charged a fee if they weren't rewound. You'd be charged 25 cents, 10 cents, 50 cents, whatever. It's some weird, exorbitant, ridiculous fee to rewind tapes. And I never understood this obsession with bringing back tapes rewound. I guess people didn't want to rent out the tapes if they were not rewound. Meanwhile, there is a philosophy that you should not rewind your tapes. You should leave them with the spool at the very end. I don't know. People, you can fight it out amongst yourself. It's obsolete media. It's a moot point whether you should leave it rewound or whatever. But the bottom line is, video stores would get you for a little bit of money if you didn't rewind the tapes. The morning after watching these videos, you got to go to dance recital, you got to drop the kids off, you got to go right across town to the video store. You want to get these tapes rewound as fast as possible. The VHS Rewinder was a great help in doing that. I think in the modern era, a VHS Rewinder will help you in that if you're working with the pre-record VHS tapes now, or blanks that had stuff on them. If you're working with tapes now, these tapes were manufactured sometime in the 80s, 90s. These tapes are going on 20, 25, 30 years old. And many times they've been sitting. A magnetic tape just can't sit for that long without stuff happening to it. Even in the best circumstances, in a cool, climate-controlled environment, stored well, magnetic tape, this VHS tape, has a tendency to stick to itself, has to do weird things. Very frequently, the first thing I do when I get a VHS that I know has not been played in 5, 10, 20 years, right? It's sat on a shelf, either in a hipster video store or in a warehouse or in somebody's garage, and I got this tape. What I do is I fast forward to the very end of the tape, fast forward the whole thing, and then rewind again just to reset the tension on the tapes. Because very frequently, if you don't do that, you plug a tape into your VCR and you'll notice you'll get static and fuzz, and you'd be, oh my God, I got to clean the heads. And that's good too. VCR maintenance, very important. Very frequently, you will improve the quality and playback of your tapes by fast forwarding them and rewinding them. One great way to do that in a relatively efficient, quick way, VHS Rewinder, you got it. Also, VHS Rewinders can help you play damaged tapes, which is very frequently you'll have a tape at the very beginning, the tape will be eaten up. If you put that into a VCR, the tape, very frequently, sometimes you can't even fast forward past that damage. The VCR will hit that damage, the VCR will wig out and it'll eject your tape. You'll plug it back in, it'll wig out and eject your tape. Sometimes you'll plug it back in and the tape will get stuck in your VCR. Very frequently, that damage is only the very beginning of the tape. It might be just in the leader, the clear plastic part at the beginning of the magnetic tape, at the beginning of the VHS tape. If you fast forward past that damage, very frequently you're not fast forwarding to the movie. It's just the black area, the black video in front of the movie. You can fast forward past that, and the rest of the movie will play perfectly. Again, you couldn't do that without a VHS rewinder, without being, it'll just plug it into that rewinder, because again, that VCR is just going to eject the tape, or you're going to get the tape stuck. Again, if you're dealing with these old gnarly tapes, and if you're dealing with VHS right now, they're all old gnarly tapes. A VHS rewinder is an essential accessory, and they're not that easy to find either. VHS stuff in general these days is not that easy to find at all. It's very weird. When I started getting into VHS back in 2012, 2013, when I moved to Austin and I kind of got back into the hobby because there's so many places around here to find VHS, and there's hipster video stores like Vulcan Video and I Love Video that stock really weird, rare VHS. When I got here, you could go into any Goodwill and you would find a stack of half a dozen VHS decks. Some of them were crap, but a few of them would always be great. And I started, like last year, a lot of my VCRs just broke down. And I started going to the Goodwills, and now it's just, you can barely find any VHS stuff. The hardware is breaking down. The VCRs are breaking down. You will find rows and rows and rows and boxes and bushels full of broken, gnarly, messed up Blu-ray and DVD players. That's all you'll find. If you are a connoisseur of vintage DVD players, you can find all kinds of garbage, all kinds of junk at the Goodwill. But the VHS stuff, the tapes, VHS tapes are still kind of easy to find. You can go in the Goodwills and they'll have, stacks and stacks of the Disney VHS, copies of Aladdin and Mary Poppins or whatever, Dunstan checks in or whatever. You'll have dozens and dozens of those white clamshell Disney tapes everywhere. But the playback hardware is getting rare, and it's beginning to get semi-expensive. And then the VHS rewinders, oh my God, you'll barely be able to find those things anywhere. They seem to hold their value pretty well. I don't know what the VHS rewinders retailed for in the 80s and the 90s, 50, 100, 150, something like that, maybe less, maybe more. I know on eBay, the VHS rewinders are consistently selling for $20, $25 and above. But if you go to the Goodwills, there's just so much stuff coming in. I went to this Goodwill and I was able to find a vintage in-the-box Kinyo rewinder. Kinyo, an excellent brand. They made some of the best rewinders. In fact, I think they still, up until a few years ago, were making the VHS rewinders for industrial applications, like libraries, people who need to rewind and fast forward tapes. The Kinyo rewinder I got was in the box. The box was in beautiful condition. I took it out of the box, and the thing with the plastic is just wonderful. It's a two-way rewinder. It can both rewind and fast forward. A lot of the rewinders that you'll see previously in stores, one of the famous types of rewinders were where you plug in the tape like sideways, and it goes in kind of this long. They're a long, skinny, kind of rectangular. I always liked the rewinders like the one that I found at Goodwill, where it looks like a mini VCR where you plug it in the correct way. And a lot of those rewinders were a little more expensive. They look bigger, and they can rewind and fast forward. The ones that you go in sideways, and there were a lot of them that went in sideways, like that were shaped like cars and had headlights that would turn on when you rewound the tapes. It's kind of gimmick stuff. It's fun. I was cool when I was a kid. I loved it, but it was a gimmick. You know, it's a gimmick. The ones that you can go in, those are, I think, some of the older ones. They're the more expensive ones, I think, and they're the types of rewinders that you can fast forward. When I was a kid, there was always this stress. I always felt there was this idea in my head that a VHS rewinder could damage tapes. It's a good thing to bring up. Personally, I've never seen a rewinder damage tapes. I mean, I guess it's possible. I mean, anything's possible. I mean, what a rewinder is, a very simple accessory. It just unlocks the spools and forwards and rewinds. Very simple circuitry to sense when there's a leader, and it'll stop so it doesn't stretch the tape. You know, it stops at the beginning and end of the tape, so it with that full, you know, that wonderful ka-chunk when you turn it down and it goes up, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. It's so satisfying, that sound, you know. That's why I did the whole video of the VHS rewinder. I want to call them VCR rewinders, but that's why I did the sound of the VHS rewinders. It's so satisfying, as they would say these days. But I've never personally, because my parents had a VHS rewinder, our family had a VHS rewinder in the 90s. It was one of the sideways ones. And then I got this new one. I've never seen a VHS rewinder damage tapes. If there was anything that happened, I mean, I have seen a VHS rewinder and tapes are chewed up or something. That usually was damage caused by a VCR and not the rewinder. If a tape is messed up and you rewind it to the beginning of the tape, and the tape is like twisted or stretched or mangled, sometimes the VHS rewinder is going to have problems going through it. So more often I see the VHS rewinders revealing damage. Of course, if a VHS rewinder is running at too high speed or too low a speed or messing things, I mean, anything's possible, I'm assuming. And as I was saying, fast forwarding, in my opinion, is a feature that you want in a modern rewinder, because again, it allows you to reset the tension on the tape, a tape that's sat. Maybe the reel of VHS magnetic tape has started to stick to itself. Weird stuff has started to happen. Even in climate-controlled environments, weird stuff is going to happen. You can reset that tension. You can fast forward through it, rewind it again, and it sometimes will play just like new. Or you can go past damage. It really is an excellent tool. And I found this thing for like $5 in a Goodwill. You'll find them. People don't know what they are. They don't know what they've got. You know, it's just, people look at a rewinder like it's something from Mars, and they wonder what's the purpose of it? What's the whole point? Why you rewind it? Okay. When you put a tape in a VCR, it has to wind through and go through so many paths. So it's such convoluted. The inside of a VCR is so Rube Goldberg, anyway. It's an amazing feat of engineering. So again, it can have problems with tape damage. Again, Rewinder allows you to get past that. It's a good triage when you get new old stock of tapes, or any tape. Even if I got a brand new tape, usually sometimes I will just go through it, fast forward it, rewind it. It's a wonderful thing to have. It's a wonderful tool. If you're a VHS geek, I think it's an indispensable accessory.
On behalf of the motion picture industry, welcome to the world of home video entertainment.